Okay. Okay. Now
Maybe Sam will extend privileges to you or me or not. We'll see.
yeah.
He's the host, and I am now the co-host.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that I can start and stop the recording. I don't think I have that authority.
Yeah, one of these weird Dells where the camera's way down in the lower left of the screen rather than in the top middle. I don't know what compelled Dell to put the camera way down there.
That's so that you cannot emulate the Donald Trump mugshot. For that, you have to have the light from above. So
hey, I'm okay with them all doing mugshots. They're all going to jail. Okay, let's just get it over with.
Do you really think they'll all go to jail? All 19 of them, or however many there are?
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, I think it's it's good and likely at the moment, and I'm more optimistic now than I've ever been about him seeing the inside of a jail cell.
But he'll go to Club Fed, because if they put them in a regular jail, they'll be assassinated by inmates. So they have to
be, as Gail said, he should be put in the same cell as Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, that was a city jail, wasn't it? That was Rikers Island. Is that a state or city jail? Notorious one.
I don't know. He's got 4 different charges in 4 different jurisdictions. Yeah. You know, he just.
But they know full well that if you put them into an ordinary jail where ordinary criminals go, if you don't segregate them, they'll be assassinated by the other inmates.
Yeah. Too bad. That's just too bad. Yeah.
Well,
inmates have to suffer that. Why shouldn't he? He's a criminal.
The most famous one where I live in Boston
very. Why shouldn't he suffer the same conditions? Huh? Why shouldn't he?
Because then the government has to investigate why they were assassinated in jail.
Fine. And that's let the government investigate. They'll come up with
that's us. That's us funding that stupid investigation.
That's fine. It'll be a short investigation.
They haven't shown that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. They only claimed he committed suicide. And there's no video. All the video suddenly didn't exist anymore.
It's conveniently turned off at the right time.
Exactly. And that Boston
malfunction.
Yeah, malfunction junction. There was a Boston priest who was convicted of, I think, child abuse or something like child abuse, and he was assassinated in I think it was a federal prison, but it was not one of those Club Fed ones.
Yep.
And one of the inmates got to him, and that was it.
I think that's actually a good part of what I'm hearing about prisons, right? If you're convicted of either child abuse or sex abuse or something like that, one of those two.
Well, they're sort of the same thing.
Well, it's either women or children, right? Then violent things happen to you. That's what
exactly. Yeah, exactly. What was I going to say?
Not the same thing with tax crime or
Oh, I know what I was going to say. And you may have heard me say this already. Many years ago, the governor of Georgia was a guy named Lester Maddox. Do you recognize the name? He was governor of Georgia, I'm going to say maybe about 40 years ago. And as you know, the jails in Georgia are in terrible shape. They're really bad jails. And a journalist raised the question to him when he was the governor about how terrible the jails were. And Lester Maddox had a fabulous reply. He says, things are not going to improve in Georgia's jails until we get a better class of prisoner. Well, they're getting a better class of prisoner.
Who?
Georgia.
Who's the prisoner that's a better class?
All the people from the federal government who were indicted in Fulton County. That's the better class of prisoner that Lester Maddox said they needed in Georgia to improve Georgia's jails. Because if they're going to go to jail in Georgia, then the feds are going to finish that investigation of why Georgia's jails are in such bad shape. Do you remember what happened? There was
I guess that's convoluted logic. I think I might be following you.
It's basically a joke. Okay. Because Lester Maddox said things are not going to get better in Georgia's jails until we get a better class of prisoner.
Okay, that's
think of it this way. If you have a group of white-collar crime versus a blue-collar crime, what kind of jail would I rather join? If you have a choice, like going to heaven and hell. Heaven, you don't have any friends, and hell, you have a lot of friends. Which way would you rather join?
If they end up in one of Georgia's state jails or county jails, then the feds are going to go in and clean them up. Because not so long ago, there was a woman who was in a Georgia jail, and I don't remember what her crime was, but she was in a cell that basically had bed bugs or something like that, and she died from just, the terrible conditions. She wasn't even assassinated. She just died of the terrible conditions in the jail. And the feds launched an investigation, I don't know, a year or two ago about that, which is just limping along. But see, if they put them in that same kind of jail that's filthy and, bug infested, you bet the feds will move in and clean that up. Or they'll move them to Club Fed, which is where they put all the white-collar government criminals. So,
and think about it, Barry. So if Fed go in and clean it all up, which means that, okay, now more criminals will say, well, I think we have a better jail now, so let me go in there.
That's true. There's a lot of people who intentionally commit crimes because they're homeless, and they can get better living conditions in jail than they can out on the streets.
They get fed.
They get fed.
Yeah.
They get shelter.
Yeah,
and they don't get freedom, but what the hell is freedom if you're on the streets and you haven't got any resources anyway?
Yeah.
What kind of freedom is that?
Yeah, medical, supervision, exercise machine.
And many of them end up being able to go to the prison library and learn something.
Yeah.
Very many, but a few.
Yeah, yeah. So nothing is absolutely bad. As long as you know how to make use of it, it's always good, even though somebody else may think it's bad.
For some people, I don't know about Georgia's jails, but for some people, the jails are better than living on the street with no money, no income, no food, no shelter. I mean, Nelson Mandela was in jail for what, 28 years in South Africa?
Yeah.
Whom I'm trying to think of his name. Henry David Thoreau actually was in jail only overnight. But he was in jail overnight for refusing to pay a poll tax. He thought the poll tax was unconstitutional, and he refused to pay it, and they put him in jail. And Emerson came to visit him. And Emerson says, "What are you doing in there?" And Thoreau says to Emerson, "What are you doing out there? You should be in here with me." That was nonviolent civil disobedience. So Martin Luther King spent days in jail. Mandela spent years in jail. Thoreau spent a night in jail. Sakharov in Russia, he was in jail. And the Passion story is basically about the same thing. Being convicted of something that ought not to be a crime. Nature.com article. What's the title of the article, though?
So this one I posted is about consciousness. How do you know AI have achieved consciousness?
Yeah. And my answer is, it takes somebody with consciousness to recognize a like-minded entity. So if you don't have consciousness, you won't be able to tell either.
Well, you cannot do a series of tests like question and answer.
Exactly. But if you're conscious, you know what kind of questions to ask. And if you're not conscious, you don't know what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah. This is the same question that, how somebody gets certified to become a master. Right. You need to have a grandmaster to be able to certify a master. But if you're a master, you cannot certify a master.
But the grandmaster knows what kind of questions to ask. That's right. Sort of like Socrates can ask questions that will evolve a person's state of consciousness by a question-answer dialogue mechanism. Mm. And if you can't emulate Socrates, then you can't use that mechanism to see if somebody's able to learn and gain awareness. Mm. I remember I did that with ChatGPT. I knew that it didn't know the model of emotions and learning that I'd worked on, but I got it to construct the model simply by asking a series of questions. I thought that was kind of interesting, that it could construct knowledge without being told, without having a professor deliver the knowledge, just deliver questions. It could construct the model that it didn't already have.
So I wonder what will they answer when I ask them a question about if AI become conscious, how is researcher will know to Bard and ChatGPT and see what it says.
Well, you know that one occasion when I had a Socratic dialogue,
right,
with ChatGPT, which is of course sequestered, sandboxed. Right. And the next day I asked a new instance to read the transcript and determine whether I was chatting with a human or another instance of AI. And it says, based on that dialogue, you were talking to a human. Mm-hmm. It looked at its own work in another instance of itself,
right.
and said, this cannot be ChatGPT. This has got too much insight. Must be human.
Yeah. And this is what I keep emphasizing on again and again and again until somebody get a message, is that ChatGPT or any AI is basically large language, which is a collection of human knowledge, and it's like a parrot, a smarter parrot than the regular parrot, because I would say that it's more like with parrot with great amount, petabyte of memories, whatever you call that, massive amount of memory parrot,
One way that you can tell somebody who's conscious is, can they troll you? Can they ask you a question that you don't want to have to answer? And the ability to troll people is a sign. It's a bit of a nefarious sign, but it's a sign of consciousness, because they know how to make you stumble.
Right.
Asking you a question that you could be able to answer, but you don't want to, because it basically trips up your ego.
So the answer from Bart is, let me post it in.
Blade Runner. Blade Runner is the movie that asked that question. That's right. The movie Blade Runner, the story Blade Runner, is about, can you tell an android from a human?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what was the difference that made the difference, but there was some difference. And then one of the instances managed to elude that condition.
Mm.
There is no single answer to the question of how researchers will know if an AI becomes conscious. However, of course, the problem is the word conscious is not well defined. However, there are a number of theories and frameworks that have been proposed. Yeah. One is integrated information theory of consciousness, which I don't know exactly what that theory is. Consciousness arises from integrated information of a system, which is a measure of how much information is shared between different parts of the system. Does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? System is conscious. The more its parts are interconnected, the more information they share. Yeah, so basically, one of the things about ChatGPT is in one paragraph, it'll make an assertion, which is plausible. And then later it'll make an assertion, which is also plausible, but contradicts the first one. Mm-hmm. And it won't notice that it has issued two contradictory remarks. Now, the human respondent can say, hey, 2 paragraphs ago you said X, and just now you said not X. Those can't both be true. And they'll say, oh, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't realize that I had issued 2 contradictory remarks. And then it'll try to figure out how it can eliminate at least one of them, not both.
How's that become conscious then?
The way it becomes conscious is to point out the discipline of cross-checking yourself to make sure that you haven't issued 2 mutually contradictory remarks at separate times.
So there's a conscious of a bigger data set is where I classify it, right?
It's conscious of what you have previously said that has scrolled off of your buffer, off your window.
Right.
So the point is that they used to show on TV that here was Donald Trump 2 years ago making a statement.
Right.
And then here's Donald Trump 2 months ago making the opposite statement.
Yeah.
It would show a whole bunch of pairs of him saying mutually contradictory things at different times. Now, a real person who's really conscious would say, oh yeah, I better pay attention to that because I'm fibbing at least half the time.
Well, that's what politician is right? I mean, talk to different people. They have different topics, they have different stand depending on what I need to get from you, right?
So you'll say what one person wants to hear,
right?
And you'll say the opposite thing to somebody else because they want to hear the opposite.
Yeah.
So what you have is segregated audiences, and each audience you say what that audience wants to hear, but you never have a mixed audience.
Right. And also, if I can go further than that, actually, Confucius have a story that which I really enjoy talking about. This is that you say different things to different students because of the perspective. So one time there was a green man, according to the story, was asking, the green man and the student was arguing how many seasons is there in a year, and the green man was saying that there's 3 seasons, and the regular guy has 4 seasons, and they argue for half a day, and then they call to see the teacher Confucius, and Confucius say, yes, it's 3 seasons, and the green man say, yeah, I won, and then the regular guys are scratching his head like, what the hell is the teacher talking about? So after the green man walk away, and the Confucius told the other guy, said like, you idiot, he's a grasshopper. He never get to see the winter.
Right. So there's a version of that in the Jewish culture where they go to the rabbi. The 2 guys are arguing. They go to the rabbi, and the rabbi listens to the first guy's position, and he says, "You're right." And then the second guy says, "Wait a minute, you haven't heard my argument." So then the rabbi listens to the second guy, and the rabbi says, "You're right." So then the first guy says, "Well, wait a minute, we can't both be right." And the rabbi says, "You're right too." No matter what they say, the rabbi says, "You're right."
Yeah.
And that's sort of a Kabbalistic kind of a wisdom that you let people believe what they want to believe, even if what they believe is that 2 inconsistent things are both right.
Yeah.
Or both wrong.
So if you go with that direction, what was the definition of right? Right means that the logic makes sense, means that if you ask 10 people or the same question, they would say that, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
A mutually agreeable facts, logic that fits together.
There is a similar one in, I think it's in Taoism. It's either Taoism or Buddhism, where it's Zen Buddhism. There's a Zen poet whose name I can't recall because they're hard to remember, but he says basically, the conflict between right and wrong is the sickness of the mind. And then there's another sentence that follows that. I can look it up and get the exact quote. But he basically says the hypothesis that you can dichotomize things into right and wrong, it's an error. Don't do that.
Yeah,
that's going to make you neurotic.
I agree.
And then
what I mean by, if you have a judgment about somebody or something, that means you have a blind spot.
Yeah.
So get your blind spot fixed, then the error will go away, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. The search for the truth eliminates the dichotomy between right and wrong. It's a false dichotomy.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's also sort of the oldest famous dichotomy: lawful, unlawful, right and wrong, okay and not okay, good and evil, those basic extremes of an axis. And Zen Buddhism says go for the
middle way.
Excluded middle. The excluded middle shouldn't be excluded. It's a hybrid.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little of both.
I mean, it's the same thing as a tool, right? If you don't know how to use a tool, the tool is a piece of junk because it takes out space and waste your resources and all that stuff. But if you know how to make use of that tool, the tool becomes, useful, Yeah.
There's a famous ad in the early days of computers, like the late 80s or early 90s, where a guy's on a deserted island and all he's got is a computer, and he makes a raft and he uses the key paddle to row away.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah. So when we are laughing at some politician, if they're making the same errors that our teacher is making, or whatever you want to call that, then we have a blind spot as far as we have a judgmental blind spot with a politician. So don't do that.
But it's very hard to get out of of a model that has been present in the culture for thousands of years, and it's a kindergarten model, and people end up stuck with these 6,000-year-old naive kindergarten models, and they can't get them. You can't extinguish them from the culture.
So whenever something like this happens, I'm pretty sure we can come up with one example specifically to talk about it. Is that from my perspective, it's due to I call it the survival, evolution, shape it up, build it from, that way. And it's so hard to shake off from survival, the need of survival, and for example, looking good being right is a part of survival. If you're not looking good, you won't survive. If you're not right all the time, you won't survive.
I'll tell you a funny story. This goes back to Toastmasters, but it's kind of a funny story. One of the guys in Toastmasters who's not technical at all, but he has money, so he buys expensive technology, which he doesn't really know how to use. Because we're having hybrid meetings, you want to be able to have more than one camera so that you can show people in the room besides who's talking, or if the person who's talking is over there, you want to switch. So he buys an expensive Logitech webcam, the C930E webcam, and he's using it. One of the guys who's giving a talk decides to go stand in the middle of the room instead of off to the side. And so he's standing where this guy's got his C930, and so he's aiming his C930 at the guy who's speaking. And with his own eyes, he can see the nuanced expressions on the guy's face, but his camera's kind of giving a wide angle because it's a webcam, which is basically for pretty close up. And if you're 5 feet away, it gives you a wide angle. So he says, that was a really good talk, but I'm sorry that I couldn't get a close up of his face, which is very full of expression. And I said to the guy, what kind of camera you have? He says, well, it's a Logitech C930. So I look it up. I say, there is an electronic zoom control panel for that camera. If you really wanted to have zoom, and that was what's important, why don't you download and install the adjunct pan, zoom, tilt, electronic control panel? So he does that. He never learns how to use it. He struggles with it and can't use it. Finally, I say, let me use your camera. So I use his camera on the tripod, and I download the Logitune control panel, and I use it just fine. So then I said, by the way, I said, this tripod that you're using, it's a Sony tripod. Do you have your original camcorder from 25 years ago that went with this tripod? He says, oh yeah, I still have it. He says, but I don't use it because it records on high 8 tape or something. I said, using a Canon camcorder that I adapted for live video. I had to buy an adapter. Why don't you bring in your old Sony camcorder and let's see if it can also be adapted. So he brings it in. And I said, I have to take it home because I can't do it in 5 minutes. Take it home, and I find out it doesn't have an HDMI output like the Canon did. It had an iLink IEEE 1394 DV output.
Yeah, IEEE.
And it had a 400 megabit iLink, which is FireWire.
Right. FireWire.
And I said, okay, now I understand the problem because almost no modern computer has a FireWire input.
Yeah.
Okay. But I happen to have computers that can accept 400 megabit FireWire. And it turns out that Zoom has a driver for iLink. Zoom, wow. Not FaceTime doesn't, Skype doesn't, the operating system doesn't, but Zoom can talk to an iLink if provided you're on a computer that has an iLink, has an IEEE 1394 input.
Yeah.
And it's native. I don't even need an adapter.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but I had to spend a day and a half to research it because I had to figure out, because it also had something called USB streaming. I thought, oh, USB streaming, that just means you can plug it into USB. No, USB streaming doesn't stream live video. It's used to upload and download copies of the recorded stuff that's recorded on the camera itself. Yeah. And it doesn't do live. But the
not
DVD
live stream, but
live stream. Even though it's called USB streaming,
Yeah.
It doesn't do what you think it does.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I eventually found out that the DVD, not the DVD though, the DV iLink DVD does work, and only Zoom has a driver for it. FaceTime doesn't, Skype doesn't. Okay, only Zoom. So now I have this thing that the guy is complaining that his brand new Logitech doesn't have Zoom. I say, yes, it has Zoom. It's a control panel. He doesn't know how to use it. And finally I say, where's the camera that originally came with this little tripod? Oh, he says, I don't use it anymore. I said, did it have an integral optical zoom? Oh, yeah, it had a great optical zoom. I said, bring it in. So it took me a day to figure out how to get. So I'm going to give it back to him. I say, this is the camera you want.
Yeah.
But you've got to be on a laptop that accepts an IEEE 1394 input, which he's got brand new laptops. They don't. I have an old Dell laptop that's about 10 years old, and it had a 1394 input.
I think the FireWire to USB adapter, you can buy one. Let's see, FireWire.
Well, here's what you can't. Here's a better choice. Since he has a Macintosh, I said there is a FireWire 800 to Thunderbolt or Lightning adapter, but you also need a FireWire 400 to 800 adapter first. So you get an iLink FireWire 400 to FireWire 800 adapter, which I have, and then a FireWire 800 to Lightning or Thunderbolt adapter. And then you plug that into a brand new Mac.
No, you don't need that. You can buy an adapter. Let me give you that link.
That's what I mean. You got to buy that adapter.
Yeah, the adapter. So
you got to buy the adapter. You got to buy actually two adapters. One from 400 to 800, which I already own, and then FireWire 800 to Lightning or Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so this one thing I just sent on the chat has FireWire to USB, FireWire to USB-C, FireWire to USB option, FireWire. I mean, you can buy the adapter. Once you have the adapter, they're good to go.
But it's you got to adapt from FireWire 400 to start with, not FireWire 800 to start with.
Are you sure?
First, you got to get it up to the 800 FireWire interface, and that's a little adapter.
There's a FireWire 800 to Thunderbolt. There's a FireWire to. Oh yeah, you're right.
First, you got to go 400 to 800. Then you can go from FireWire to anything you want.
Got it.
And the thing is that the iLink is a pretty high fidelity picture.
Yeah.
It's not 19 whatever it is, 1920. It's 1152 something or other.
Right.
But it's good enough, and because now you've got a 100-to-1 room zoom.
Right,
so you can zoom on somebody halfway across the room, 30 feet away, and get a close-up of them.
But the zoom on the FireWire camera, do you have to manually do the zoom, or you can do it through the software? That's the question.
Two ways to do the zoom. 3 ways to do the zoom on this Sony Handycam.
Okay.
First of all, there's an optical zoom button on the top of the camera.
Right.
Also, the tripod that he bought has a control panel on the handle of the tripod. Okay. It plugs into something called a LANC, L-A-N-C. LANC interface on the camera allows the remote control on the handle of the tripod.
So it's a wire remote control.
Yeah, it's a wire. And then there is a wireless remote control that will do the zoom. Because you only can do the zoom, you can't do the pan.
Yeah.
So if you're in front of the camera, you can point the little wireless
infrared.
Yeah, it's infrared. And then if you're operating the camera, you use the one on the handle. And then other than that, you can use the one on the.
Got it. So there's a wire, there's a wireless, and then there's one on camera.
On camera. So mainly, if he's using the tripod, and you plug in the LANC cable.
Yeah.
Then you can control the zoom.
See, what I love about this example, Barry, if I may change it from the meta perspective, is that there are many solutions to a problem, and many, you have to chunk it down, you have to know what you're talking about, you have to understand the concept, and you need to keep track of all the logic, and you need to know what works with what. the convention perspective. So it's almost like life. This is why I look at it from the logical perspective versus if you try to go emotional about it, try to fix this problem with your emotional intelligence. Good luck, my friend.
I had to do the research. And by the way, there's an analog audio video output also on that camera, but you need a special Sony connector.
Right.
Because it's a funky little D-shaped connector. That's
right.
But then that gives you RCA connectors out.
Right.
Audio, which you then have to adapt back in again.
Yeah.
To an analog.
I have all that. I have all that in my house.
Yeah.
Not throwing it away yet.
So, but the guy, the guy gives me the camera with one iLink cable, and in the meantime, I have a USB cable that I can plug in and find out that it doesn't do what you want, and I don't have the analog. But it turns out that of my 3 antique laptops, actually 4 antique laptops, 2 of them, which are Dell, have that little IEEE input.
Right. Yeah, it was very popular for one time for almost 10 years.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that even though the operating systems don't necessarily support it, the Zoom program can talk to that.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Talk to that DV format. So FaceTime can't, Skype can't, but Zoom, it can talk. It can recognize that DV format.
Did I ever tell you about Zoom, the founder of Zoom?
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, he's a guy that hated the multi-million-dollar teleconferencing equipment for Cisco. It's called telepresence.
Yeah, the $3,000.
Remember the big boardroom and with lots of big monitors and
$5,000 for a special room.
No. $5,000 is nothing. You can't even buy squat. It's a multi-million. I'm talking about $2 million conference room.
$2 million. Wow.
Yeah, it's called telepresence.
Yeah, and that's from the 1980s, I think. Or something.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's what he was ahead of that. And then he left at Cisco and he founded Zoom. So when it first came out, I was very impressed with it. I was one of the very first subscriber. And I still, up to today, I'm still paying my grandfather in price, $10 per month.
Wow, you have a grandfather to count on Zoom.
Yeah.
And that gives you all of the extra features.
Yeah, for $10.
You're not allowed to share that, are you?
No. Yeah.
The other thing that I don't think I mentioned this, but you may have seen in the tech news that Microsoft rolled out an update to Windows 10, maybe 11 also, at least
11, crashing.
And then they had a glitch in it.
Yeah.
And one of the glitches, which may not be the only glitch, is that they had rescinded a site certificate that was a root site certificate. They rescinded it, and then they put it back a couple of days later. And that caused a bunch of things to break.
Blue screen. Yeah, I got every morning when I RDP from my home to the office, I can do UC fine. But as soon as I reach the office, I try to log in. As soon as I touch the keyboard, boom, blue screen. 3 consecutive days until yesterday. I have a big update from Insider because I provided the more advanced version of the window. That update takes like half an hour or almost an hour. Sorry,
and here was there were 2 clues that you were in this glitch. The first clue is you got an unbidden prompt to restart now.
That's right.
But down in the bottom, in the lower right, where you have those little icons in the icon tree in the lower right, there was a new one that was a cockeyed window. There was a window that was a cockeyed shape, and it said "Reboot now."
No, basically the one I have is a big QR code in the middle of the screen.
Oh.
And then it tells you something like, I don't remember exactly anymore. It's like something to do with that they recognize the code of the CPU was wrong or something like that. Anyway, and yesterday morning, my wife's computer had the same problem also from Dell's computer. Mine is a HP computer. So when I saw that, I said, I know exactly what it is. But hers is different. Hers, I had to push down the power button for at least 20 seconds to make sure manually turn it off before I can reboot it. My HP computer, all I need to hit the space bar, it will reboot itself.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. A week later, when I had this issue with the Toastmasters meeting and my computer wasn't wouldn't do two-factor authentication. That was one of the things that was broken.
Wow.
And I had to do it because the guy who normally hosts the meeting was absent. So he gave me his login for Zoom, but I said, I have to do two-factor authentication. You have to consent in real time when I try to log in as you. And that didn't work because of this glitch.
That's right.
I never got host privileges, which meant I couldn't record the meeting.
Right.
And after the meeting was over, then I rebooted the machine and everything worked.
Yeah.
But a couple of nights ago, there was another Zoom call, another club, different club entirely, and the speaker comes on 15 minutes before the scheduled start, and he can hear us, we can't hear him.
Hmm.
And he checks everything, can't get his mic to work. And finally, I say to him, reboot your computer.
Yeah.
I said, I bet you got caught in that same glitchy Windows update. Sure enough, he reboots his computer and says, oh, yeah, Windows went through a weird update. And then it worked. But in his case, we only lost 8 minutes. We started the meeting 8 minutes late. At Toastmasters, they say, oh, we have to start within 1 second of high noon. I can't delay. And if they had let me reboot my computer, I could have fixed it. But no, got to start at noon. And if the technology doesn't work, screw it. There's not going to be a recording.
Understood. Yeah. Structure create behavior. That's a structure.
I keep telling them, I said, look, if you're going to do multimedia and hybrid and all this stuff and Zoom, you have to work that in as part of the infrastructure. And if the media technology isn't working, that's part of the learning curve.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk face to face if you can't communicate to the other guy over there.
Anytime that you have technology involved, you have to have plan B. You must have a plan B. Unless your plan B, technology will mess you up big time.
Yeah. And that was a problem where that particular day, nobody else who had any technological know-how was present, including the guy who normally runs the Zoom host. So they delegated everything to me. And I said to him, I said, Bob, you're going to have to do two-factor authentication when I try to log in as you. And I sent him SMS text messages and he doesn't respond. And then I call him on Google Voice and he only gets half the message because now I've already got Zoom running, which is then using the PolySync 40 echo canceling thing, and Zoom Voice wants to use a different audio. So the problem is that either he couldn't hear me or I couldn't hear him. So,
well, first of all, anytime you give your account to somebody else with a two-factor authentication, make sure you disable the damn thing. Unless you disable it, it's going to be nothing but nightmare.
Exactly. And the thing is that he wouldn't know how to do that because
basically you log in. So see, you have a username, you have the password. You log in, they say, now give me the code. And you just do it without telling him about it. I just, you don't have to say, I disabled it because you.
Oh, I see. I could have disabled it without telling him.
Yeah.
Except that if you disable two-factor, do you need to use two-factor to disable two-factor?
Yes. That's what I said. When he give you that account, he was talking to you on the phone or see you in the face, right?
So on the time of the meeting.
No. Before that, when he hand you the account.
He'd already handed me the account a couple months before for another time he was away.
Right. When he handed it to you, do you see him face to face or did he?
No. What he did, he basically gave me the password for Zoom. His passwords. Right. And then when I tried it at home to test it at home, I realized I needed two-factor.
Okay. So
I sent him a message or call. I don't remember if I sent him a message or call him up. But then he digs up the code, tells me either over the phone or over email.
Right.
And I get it to work. And then I tell my home computer, remember it.
No.
And I'm on a laptop. It doesn't.
No. As soon as he give it to you, you turn off because you already have the button or whatever we call that, the token. You now use that token to turn off the two-factor authentication.
Yeah, see, I didn't do. First of all, I wouldn't have done it without telling.
I'm saying that remember that if you do that next time, you will have a lot less because he does. See, a lot of time what happens is they give you a warning signal, so to turn it on, and he just turned it on without even know the implication and the trouble it's going to create.
Here's the funny thing: while we're having all this trouble because of the glitch, he actually logs into the Zoom call from his cell phone or something. So he logs in. He could have started the recording himself, but he didn't.
Right. This is another tricky part. Okay. You got two places log into the same Zoom account, and he can take over. He could disable it. Let's say he turned off the phone or something. You know what happened? You shut down the whole call.
And in his case, no, because he doesn't have to start the call. This is like this one here today. We can all go to the Zoom call without him starting it, but none of us have host privileges, so we can't start the recording.
Okay, look, let me say this way. In our call right now, if Sam Han go to the second computer, log in, and he say that you are logging through another computer already, do you want to log in? And he say yes, you know what will happen?
Will the recording stop?
Yeah, our session will recession. He will disappear from here because he just logged out from this session in order to log into the other account. You're not allowed to have two log in at the same time.
Account. But that means that when he logs in from another machine and logs out from his original machine, the recording stops at that point?
Recording stops, and then the whole session just shut down. Everybody leave because he's a host. He's a host, and all the call coming through to his session. When the session has go away, when you log out, I got that hit before. So I log off. The whole session just shut down. I leave. Remember one time you have that before. I left.
Right. Yeah.
And I left. You know what happened? You and Josh have to make a call with a Facebook Messenger because you cannot log in anymore. So I remember
that. But why is it that you and I could connect to this call today before Sam Han joined or started the call?
They're two different things because he was not logging in anywhere else. What I'm saying to you is that remember, okay, let me try one more time.
So once he logs in,
right,
and becomes the host, now if he leaves as the host, now it's
going to leave. He logged into a different machine, and the software said to him, "You're logged into another machine. You want to log off from the other machine in order for me to log you into the new machine." And as soon as he say yes, I want to log off from the other machine. As soon as he log off, sort of the dragon with our head, everything fall apart on his side.
Yeah. So there are so many variables that it's hard to figure out what's going to. I can predict that probably something will go haywire.
Okay, so think of this way. All the things you need to keep track of, this is what we talked about in the beginning of the session, consciousness. If you're conscious about everything's going on, you're good to go. If you're not conscious about it, you're doomed.
And for me, that means that you have a reliable mental model, a system model of how the system functions so that you can anticipate what's going to happen. If you punch that button there, what's going to happen over here? You have to have a comprehensive system model that's accurate and that you can exercise in real time.
Yeah, so you got good memory, good understanding of the technology, and the consequences of each different perspective, different scenario.
Right. That I can simulate it up here correctly in 5 seconds.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with you when you deal with difficult people as well, or employee or customer or vendors. This is exactly what happened. So when you're dealing with the Toastmaster, you have to say the right thing, do the right thing, keep track of everything, make sure it doesn't fall apart. And you got to start the meeting once within a second.
So there's more to the story. So he successfully records the meeting in the cloud last week because he was present. And then a day later, he sends out emails saying, he said, due to conditions unforeseen by the tech team, and there's no recording from last week. However, there is recording from this week, and I've just uploaded it to Google Drive. So I go to Google Drive. Guess what? It's not there. He thought he uploaded it, and he didn't confirm. And as far as I know, nobody pointed out to him, hey, Bob, I went to look at the recording of today's meeting, and it ain't there. And my point is that we're going to all this trouble recording and uploading the meetings, and almost nobody's ever looking at them.
Right. Oh, before I forget, another bring out the Google Drive. Is your Toastmasters a C3 organization, right? A nonprofit C3, right? And not C6, right?
I think that's true. It's an educational organization. I think it's nonprofit.
Okay, it's a nonprofit C3. So if it's a C3, you can apply for the free drive and free like Slack from Microsoft. You can get easily over $100,000 worth of product for free.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to tell Bob about that.
Yeah, because once you have it, you can use Microsoft C3. I mean, the Slack, you can get the Office 365, you can get all that for free for 100 members.
Yeah, that's interesting because I have an MIT email address. I can get Office 365 under the MIT license.
Right.
Even though I was only a visiting scientist for 6 years, and I was never a student or a faculty member.
Right.
Still have an MIT email address, and that suffices.
Yeah, you can ask Bud about it. Basically, I know multiple organizations because I'm involved with multiple non-profit organizations. C3 is a big deal. Once you get a C3, you can get easily, the last time I calculated this, about $150,000 worth of freebies from Google and Microsoft.
I'll have to tell Bob. What I don't know is whether the individual chapters fall under that or only Toastmasters International, the parent.
Doesn't matter. No, basically, the father C3, the daughter, the son also gets C3 as well, status.
I'll tell Bob to look into that because I mean, all those of us who have limited storage on Google
Drive,
either 5 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes. And with these videos, you can easily fill that up pretty fast.
You get free website, you can use SharePoint, you can get again Microsoft Slack for free.
Microsoft Slack, what is that?
Yeah, like a collaboration tool.
Collaboration tool.
Yes, Google it. Microsoft Slack. Collaboration. It's a collaboration tool almost like WhatsApp, but it's much more advanced.
We'll have to look that up. I don't recognize that name.
Yeah, Microsoft Slack.
SLAC.
SLACK.
Oh, L. Okay. Oh, all right. Never heard of it. So
all you do is type in the word Slack, you'll see it.
But the point is that I do all this homework, all this research, because the people who want a feature already own the technology that provides the feature, and they don't know that they own it. And if I tell them they already own it, they don't know how to use it. And then I got to basically do their homework for them and basically give them a turnkey operation to use it. And it's hard to do a turnkey on stuff like that, especially if it's a 50-year-old technology.
Well, for the first 15 years of my business, I was providing turnkey computer for all my customers. That's what started my business.
I mean, imagine that I wanted to give you a turnkey restaurant operation so that you can be a master chef and make souffle and whatever with just turnkey. No, you got to know what the hell you're doing.
That's right.
You can't just have a recipe book and follow the recipe and have first-class meals come out. No.
Remember the software called 1DIR, if you remember that?
1DIR, don't recognize the name.
Yeah, anyway, there's a menu system. All you do is you turn on, you have auto exec run a program, the batch file that you print out on the screen. You say 1, if you press 1, you get this. If 2, you get that. 3, so 1 to 10.
But you got to memorize the menu.
Yeah, it's just that's all. That's what I provide. So I program the batch file that's print out on the screen, and that was the most one. And later on, I have software that I can go in and change things so that it's all like it's like a GUI interface, but it's using text characters.
I get it. The downside is that you can't have too many of them because
you can't have too many of them,
and therefore each one has to have a relatively brief description.
Right.
And you don't get any substitution. Okay, can I substitute mashed potatoes for the French? No, you get no substitution, no mix and match, and you have to know what it means, what the menu item means. And so the problem is that this is the function I want. Well, it's number 4. I said, I've read number 4, but I didn't understand what it said.
I'll tell you a funny story of my years of, I probably sell more than $500 million worth of hardware and all that stuff. But anyway, one of the funniest one was this. In the very beginning of it's probably 85. So I sold a computer to a friend of mine. His name is Richard. He's from England. So he got English accent. So I spent 2 hours going through everything with him and setting up and it's, living room, and he got it working. And he bought a book, How to Learn DOS, right? MS-DOS. So I got home, half an hour later, he called me, Sam, my computer doesn't work. I said, what happened? I said, I said, did you turn on? Yes, turn on. Power cord plug in? Yes, plug in. Every surge protector have light on. And when I turn it on, it's just blink and blink and blink, nothing. Say, something like that. So I say, what did you do? I say, I was going through my MS-DOS training manual. I say, I just thought about that. You must come to the letter F. Is that right? He said, yes, I was at letter F, learning how to use formats.
Oh, he used he formatted his hard drive.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. That's amazing that you could figure that out.
I was like, yeah, you must be learning how to use format fancy. Yes, I just did. Yeah. I followed the book. I said, okay, I need to bring the computer home and redo the whole thing again.
Yeah. You basically said, how do I commit suicide? Oh, I type in commit suicide.
So it's like, I was ready to go to his house and say, let me borrow the few pages of our format so that you don't have it.
Yeah. So that's the self-destruct button, if it has one. And Unix has computers say delete everything.
Yeah.
If you push the self-destruct button, bye-bye.
I mean, I got thousands and thousands of customers. He's the only one that did that. It's like, well, he's following meticulously one letter at a time to learn how to use a loss command.
Yeah, that's the thing about systems thinking, is that you cannot anticipate all the stupid things people are going to do.
Yeah.
And when the stupid things happen, you go, well, I didn't think you were going to do that, but now I got to tell you, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they will keep discovering ways to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Before you can be, and pretty soon they're dead.
Yeah.
They literally blew up their computer.
Yep.
So here I am keeping these 15-year-old machines running and finding out that I can solve all your problems with the solution that worked 15 years ago.
Yeah.
For zero cost, except my time.
Yeah.
It's some brain work, not much.
Yeah. And the only reason why you can do that is because you grew up, you follow the wave, you do all the technology from start. So you know
exactly. From IBM 7090 and IBM 1620 and IBM 360 way back in the 1960s. Yeah. I was there at the birth of the computer age.
Yeah.
Quite the birth. I was never Sage or those hand-built
machines. The beginning stages. The beginning
of the commercialization.
Yeah.
26 card punch.
Yeah.
Fried and teletype tape.
The time I started is back in 83, 82, that you get to use the 5 1/4 inch floppy drive. You got one floppy drive, 64K memory.
Yeah, you started 20 years after I started in 63 at university. I don't remember when I first laid my hands on a computer, but it would have been 63, 64 in that when I was a freshman or a sophomore.
Right. I remember the machine was about $4,000 per machine with 2 5 1/4 inch floppy drive. With
IBM used to give away machines to land grant universities. Nebraska was a land grant university, and they gave them a 7090, they gave them a 1620, they gave them a 360. And we had to have a room, we had to have a building and electricity, but other than that, they gave us the machine.
Yeah. I was in Ohio State, so we have I don't remember, 360, I don't remember, I think 360. I was using the PL1 programming language. That was my class.
That's what I learned. I learned PL1 on a 360, 16K of real core memory.
Yeah.
And then 32K of real core, and then 64K, that was the world of core memory.
Yeah. That's where I met my wife. So we were in the freezing cold building.
Yeah.
And some of my classmates was using their punch card, walking around with punch card.
Yep. 026, 029 fried and paper tape. And if you were lucky, you had a 16K core memory machine.
Yeah.
We had an IBM 1620, which is about the size of a dining room table.
And then you have an account that they allocate CPU time for you, and you can, every time you use up, the class that we have, we only have tiny little bit of CPU time. And because one of our teammates has a graduate class, and she has unlimited amount of CPU time. So we were using her account.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that at Stanford. I was taking a course in linear programming, and we were given basically a kindergarten problem in linear programming to solve by the simplex method, and so many minutes of time on the computer.
Yeah,
I was very, very careful about the very first program I wrote, making sure it was error-free, and son of a gun, it was correct. The very first time, I didn't have to debug it.
Wow.
It ran and got the correct answer from scratch. Yeah. I was very proud of myself because I was very conscientious about not making stupid mistakes and running
my professor said, if you get it right the first time, you don't learn anything.
Well, I sort of already knew from undergraduate at Nebraska with the IBM 360, because what would happen is you would make a typo.
Right.
And I was actually in the physical room with the computer. I could actually sit at the console and I could stand in front of the line printer as it's printing. So first it prints out your program, then it prints out the diagnostic messages, and then the link step, and then the execution step. Well, I could see the syntax errors of the compile phase as it was being printed. And then I could go and correct that on the punch cards and get the punch cards back in the card reader before it had finished printing out so I got negative turnaround time.
Wow.
I got the program back into the hopper before the current version was finished printing out.
Nice.
But that was because I was in the IBM room in the middle of the night when nobody else was there, and I had the key to the building, and I could literally boot the machine, and nobody was there to say, get your hands off the friggin' machine, Barry.
That was one class that really helps me a lot. Is are you familiar with the HP 68000 debug system?
Not the debug system. I mean,
they call it the HP 68000. So anyway, it's a machine that you learn how to do assembly language programming, and you have three choices of CPU: 6809, 6800, and 8600. And
yeah, that was a Motorola chip. The 68,000 was a Motorola series, 68020.
Yeah, at that time it was 6800. At that time,
that was the very first of the Motorola series.
Yeah. Because 6809, let's see. All I remember is if you use a Motorola version, you can the register, you can go from right to left. But if you do the Intel CPU, you have to do it's a swap. It's like no, I'm not going to do 6809. I want to do 6800. I don't remember anymore.
Because I remember having those early Apple machines, the little Apple machines that were the 68020, 030, and 040 series. The ones that ran Mac OS 6, 7, and 8, I think they ran. Right. And 9, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, that tool was really, really helpful for me to so the first thing I learned is, I think it served me a lot for the last 40 years or 50. I got benefit from it. Rule number 1, always separate the software problem from the hardware problem. If you don't know the difference, you're in trouble.
And then there's firmware, which really is in trouble. The NVRAM, all that stuff, and the firmware and the BIOS.
Yeah.
And that was arcane as hell because it varied from every Spark. The Sun Spark machines had a pretty complicated, they didn't call it BIOS, they called it firmware. They had another name for it. I forget now what they called it.
Right. And then my first machine language book, the first machine language class, everybody, the whole class average is like 50%. And the book is so thin, it's like $60 for the book. Yeah, machine language book.
Machine language.
Yeah, that's I still remember vividly the machine language that is so pseudo code and this and like, oh.
Yeah, they used to make up funky commands like HSF, halt and set fire. They had these funny commands that were made up.
So consciousness, AI consciousness, is about keeping track of the timeline, have a huge timeline that's relevant to the subject you're dealing with, have good memory, get good logic, good separation of right and wrong, working and not working.
Being able to propose a system model that you can exercise, that you can say, here is the behavior of the system. go back through the system model, invert through the system model and say, what must be happening either at the input of the system model or internally to give the output that I'm seeing, the anomaly that I'm seeing. And that, so diagnostic reasoning was a derivative of system modeling. And that was the real power of having a system model, is it gave you a chance to do reliable diagnostic reasoning and then confirm whether the diagnosis is correct or not. You know,
so before I learn anything, I want to learn how is this product or the tools I'm using allow me to do debugging. If it doesn't allow to do debugging, I'm walking away from it.
Yeah. And everything breaks eventually. Yeah. And when it breaks, can you identify the culprit, the gremlin that was responsible for the breakage? And can you get in and replace it, repair it, or whatever? Can you solder in a new capacitor? Got a chip, or replace a bad memory chip, or fix an error in the input, or hack the input to get around the error.
That's right. That's right.
Well, those are all very powerful things. When they taught AI at MIT, some of the homework problems were they would give you a almost correct program and one typo in it someplace. And as a result of that one typo, there were some functions that didn't work. And the homework problem was find and fix the bug.
Yeah.
Find that here is a comma that should be a semicolon or something like that.
Right.
Or here is a one that was typed as the letter L. Find and fix that.
That's so hard because you have to think outside the box in order to do it, because
0 and capital O, very common. 0 and capital O, L and 1, comma and period. All these tiny little one character errors would make the program break, and you had to figure out, you know, where's the bug.
Right.
You have a variable name that either has a 0 or a 1 in the name, and somebody typed the letter O or the letter L. And so you've got two variables that look identical, but they're not.
Oh, did you see the news on IBM say that they have the AI, they have a machine now for AI that translate, guess what? COBOL to Java.
Well, COBOL's easy to read, but it doesn't say very much.
Yeah. But COBOL has, couldn't believe it. There's 600 million line of code on COBOL.
Still in service.
Yeah, still in service.
Wow, because COBOL is 1960.
Yeah, because it's being widely used and irreplaceable or whatever. It's too high expensive to replace. I remember there was the relief check was supposed to print out. They're using COBOL machine because I have a friend of mine live in Virginia. He's a COBOL expert, right? So he said they will hire him to fix some code on the thing because a lot of archive systems that you cannot replace, you know.
Yeah, well, if you can emulate a COBOL compiler on a modern machine, but that's tricky because you can usually emulate 95 to 99%, and there's that one little thing you can't emulate, that one little glitch that depends on something in the hardware.
Right.
Has to be in the hardware.
Yeah, same thing as language translation. There's one thing that you cannot translate.
The thing that's not the thing that's that.
Yeah, that one right there. Yeah,
it's the inflection in your voice.
Yeah, so that program allow you to translate it into Java so that you can now deal with it. You can basically just take the project and translate it into a totally different language. And but
didn't Java go away in Windows and Mac? Didn't they discontinue Java? What did they discontinue? Discontinued something.
Well, whether you like it or not, some ancient language is being spoken today, you know, on the book.
I know. I know that they got rid of what's the name of it? I keep as I update really old computers, I get to the message where this is the end of supported lifetime 4, and then they tell you what operating system or what subsystem or what language is discontinuing.
Java was never in Windows. Yeah, Java was in Windows. I saw Java's programming language from, I don't remember what's the name of this company.
Well, one of the Adobe languages, what was the Adobe language that came to end of life a few years ago?
Java was never shipped as part of Windows, and it was never a part of what was
No, I'm
called.
saying there's tool you can buy to compile, to edit, to all that thing. It's the tool for in the window environment.
But Java isn't JavaScript a derivative of the Java language? No, they're not related. How do they name JavaScript and Java when they're not related?
JavaScript was a weekend invention of Brendan Eich, I believe. And so he did it in about 48 hours, and he gives talks about the shortcuts he took and what he regretted doing, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the world's most popular language right now.
And it's no relation to Java as a standalone language from Sun.
Not really. Not really. There's no JVM, this syntax is just, same family of syntax. It was basically a marketing ploy.
I always thought that JavaScript was simply Java inside of a web browser.
Nope. That was supposed to be something called Java applets, and that never went anywhere.
Oh, because it was insecure.
There are a lot of reasons. Performance, security, machine strength, et cetera, et cetera. And at that time, Java was supposed to be a UI language, to render UI, but it turns out to be useful only in server side right now. But it's not going away. It's not dead.
Speaking of JavaScript, this is a Sony NetMD Walkman. It records audio on a little mini disc. It's like a Macintosh disc, except it's physically smaller. And it records. It has its own file structure, not a classical file structure, and it records audio using an 8-track encoding, which is Sony's proprietary audio encoding, and it has a USB connector. And 20 years ago, you could download a Windows XP program to exchange audio files back and forth to your PC. Now, you can go to a website where the website, using, I guess, JavaScript, can talk to this device, and you can control it and upload and download files off of this just by going to a website that's running some JavaScript, but not all browsers. It works on the Chrome and Chromium browsers. But I was originally trying to find and download, this 25-year-old program that ran on XP. Even when I found it, it didn't run. But then I found there's a website that does it.
Anyway, I just posted on the script that IBM tapped AI to translate COBOL code to Java.
Yeah. Not that I know what to do with this Sony Walkman, even though you can literally walk around and record stuff and play music and whatever. So I have it. Now the question is, what do I do with it?
If you're interested in high fidelity, there was a device you can buy that you can plug into the iPhone, and then you will play the music with a high fidelity through that converter for you.
Oh, so it uses high bit rate encoding. Yeah, because once you're digital, as long as you're flexible with the encoding format and the bit rate and the quantization error, you can get the fidelity to whatever you want.
Right. Anyway, I have a friend of mine convinced me to get one of those. I tried, it makes no difference to me.
See, nobody in my family is into music, and you listen to AM and FM radio, and phonograph records from the 19.
I cannot tell the difference and make the difference.
No, I know. I mean, for example, the guy who retired this thing, he plays the piano. In fact, what's mostly recorded is his recording his own piano playing pieces. I think that's what he used it for, was just to practice his playing. And he can tell the difference between quality audio and not quality audio.
Yeah,
I certainly couldn't tell the difference. I mean, I could play one of these pieces, and he said, "Oh yes, that's so and so's sonata from such and such a year that I played this and then," and he can recognize the piece and that he played it on his own piano.
And
whatnot. For me, I wouldn't even know. I could tell it's a piano.
Yeah. That's it. In terms of quality, so you got music quality, food quality, clothing quality. What else quality?
Yeah, well, that's basically what sells is people will buy things which are higher quality than they can detect.
Right.
Crappy quality, they can tell it's crappy. Once you get above the threshold, it doesn't matter if it's high above it or just barely above it. It's all the same.
But I can tell a 5-star hotel versus a 2-star hotel.
Well, yeah, a dump. You can tell if you're in the YMCA dump or the Marriott or the whatever. So Joshua didn't come on today. He's on, but he's not on. And Sam is
on. He's just muted.
Sam is here, but not here. And nobody else. So for the last month or so, we haven't had Stacy. There's Joshua. He's outside today, I think. Is he outside? I don't know. You're inside. Yes, inside. What's that thing behind you?
It's a bed. Oh,
that's a
I'm
bed.
Getting pummeled. Yeah, I'm getting pummeled with bubbles.
Oh, that's not a wall. I thought that was a wall behind you.
Big bubble.
Oh, nice bubbles. Yep, just getting pummeled with bubbles.
Bubble day today. How's the weather?
Yep.
Getting cooler.
The internet.
Oops, we just lost your voice. Or well, either you just stopped talking.
Spotty.
We froze. Last night they had a big internet outage in New England. We were trying to play an online Dungeons and Dragons session, and the guy who was hosting the session, who lives up in just across the border into New Hampshire, the whole internet in his state, well, not the whole internet, but his whole ISP went out.
Wow.
In his state, New Hampshire, Vermont, and parts.
Okay, let me fix it.
And parts of Metro Boston went out. I was on Discord with the other two guys. Both of them were in Greater Boston, and my connection to Discord was spotty. And the other two guys could talk just fine. But I think it was caused traffic
over to cellular. You guys can hear me?
Yeah, now you're good.
Yep. Okay. I didn't mean to, I just said I'm switching over the internet to Wi-Fi in the house to cellular.
Because your Starlink isn't reliable.
Good. So there's three, I've gone over this a million times, but I have three services. I have cable internet, I have Starlink, and I have cellular. And none of them are reliable.
Yeah.
Are you buying a device that allows you to bond all three services together and give you the bonded version?
Starlink has problems because of the visibility in the sky.
No, basically,
the cable has problems because
this device will take all three ISP and bond them together, so they will pick automatically.
That device is called the iPhone. The iPhone does that automatically.
No. You know that it's less than $100. You can get it from.
I do understand. No, I know what you're talking about, Sam.
Right.
What's the name of what he's talking about?
I don't know the name of it, but I know the concept of getting a weak signal from one place, bonding it over. So if that signal goes out, I have a Google router that does that as well.
No.
A signal coming in from one. Okay, well, then what are you talking about? I don't know.
Basically, it's just, let me see if I can find it for you.
See, for me, if I don't have the name of something, I can't research it. I have to know the name of it.
I know the concept and the theory of that. I'm just saying, I don't have any problems, actually. All I have to do is just go to a spot where it's working perfectly. And that's the reliable service here where I'm at. But I'm in the middle of the woods, so you gotta understand. It's amazing that I even have any connection at all.
My friend up in New Hampshire has in his house something he calls a nano cell. It provides local cell service and then is a repeater to the real cell phone. So he positions the nano cell where he's got a good coverage to a cell tower, and then that repeats the cell service down to the iPhones in the house. He calls it a nano cell. Have you ever heard of a nano cell, Sam Chan?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm trying to focus on getting what you guys needed. Give me a second. I'm almost there.
I mean, what I have is just Wi-Fi in the house.
Yeah, I actually have 2 nano cells in my house.
Do you really?
I bought it. You actually cannot buy them anymore.
Oh, are they illegal or what?
Yeah, basically, I don't know what they're illegal now. They stopped selling it, and I was so lucky to get it. And they're supposed to return it for a refund. I'm not returning it, man. I'm keeping it.
Well, that's interesting because I had never heard of them, and I didn't know that they're off the market, probably because of, well, I can imagine maybe the Public Utility Commission sort of make them illegal or something.
Yeah. Anyway, so this one here is a TP-Link ER7206 multi-WAN professional wire gigabit VPN router, increased network capability, firewall, anyway, load balancing integrated for 130. So this is what I'm using in my office when I wouldn't know when I speak go down. I don't even care because the other one take over automatically. It's all bonded together. So anyway, so just share that with you if you're interested.
I have that already.
You have that already?
You can put a nano cell up on your roof, so it's got a clear shot to some cell towers. And
trying to explain to you guys that that's not the problem.
I mean, if you have 3
In other words,
imagine
this. Imagine you had a cable internet service here, and you're at the end of the road, the very last house at the end of a cable internet going through the mountains for 14 miles.
Right.
That's what you got a bad.
So you imagine you call up the cable service and you say, "Why does your internet keep going out?" And they say, "Well, let's check the power. Oh, it's at a barely minimum at your street level. We'll turn it on higher at the street level." And then they do that, and it's working for a week, and then it goes out again.
You turn it back down.
Thing any internal thing can do.
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't live there.
Exactly. So then don't live there. So then I have another place to live, another house that I'm building, and I bought Starlink and it works perfectly up there. But in the space that I live, look at all these trees.
Yeah.
So when you put Starlink, it's going up and hitting the tree. So every 10 seconds, it's going to have a satellite go by that tree and cut out for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. I'm looking at
I'm just saying, I'm so frustrated. Can you imagine being me? I'm so frustrated.
You get fresh air that I don't get.
I just looked at
saying, yeah. Okay, go ahead. I'm done. I'll go back.
I just looked at the iMac that I'm on right now. It has both Ethernet and Wi-Fi. I just checked to see the Wi-Fi link. Because I was over at my neighbor's house fixing their Wi-Fi, I ended up acquiring their Wi-Fi password because I was doing the. Guess what? This iMac is on my neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Yep.
I had put it on my own, but somewhere between when I put it on, it switched back to my neighbor's Wi-Fi. She's got a 300 megabit Wi-Fi on Fios, and I've got 100 megabit.
Yeah.
And for some crazy reason, unless I tell it not to use my neighbors, it likes to use my neighbors.
Yeah, use the 300. I'll use the 300 easy.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny that, and then the other reason I was over there is because her bedroom is diagonally opposite of where her Wi-Fi base station is. Mm-hmm. So my living room is actually very close to her bedroom because of the way the units are laid out. So I created a base station in the corner of my living room that's very close to the corner of her bedroom. It's just, and I said, if you're in your bedroom and you can't get your own Wi-Fi, you can borrow mine. But I end up instead borrowing hers.
Anyway, I just posted the link on WeBoost. Cell phone signal booster for homes.
Just bought it, $561 plus tax.
Yak.
Well, again, it's dependent. For me, internet is a tool for me to make a living. If it costs me $10,000, I will pay for it because it's really important to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Here's something for you.
I'll pay $1,000 a month for an apartment in Los Angeles that has 360 down.
What is that, Barry? What's that?
This has USB-A on this side and FireWire
on the other side.
400 on this side, and I have no idea what's supposed to be used for.
You have a camcorder, have the FireWire that need to go to convert that to USB.
This is a male USB 400 FireWire to a Type A USB on the other side, and it's got to be nothing in it. It's got to just be wires. I don't think there's anything in it. Which
means that electric signal is compatible. The connector has to be compatible too. So think of this like light bulb. It doesn't matter where you put your light bulb is, you still get lights.
So what the devil could you hook this up to that would actually work on a USB on one side and a FireWire 400 on the other? What device?
Well, basically, you have a computer have a USB interface only, and you don't have a FireWire connector on your laptop, but they need to get the data out of the FireWire machine.
But this is a male. This is a male FireWire, not a female. A computer would have a female FireWire. This is male.
Yeah, male. All the FireWire connector on the laptop are female.
Exactly.
So it's connecting. You can connect a laptop to another laptop. FireWire to USB.
But then on this side, it's a Type A USB. Would you want a Type B?
No, it's Type A to Type A.
You can connect Type A to Type A.
If you have a female to female converter in between.
I do have a male to female.
That's male to male. You need to have a female to female.
I'll have to play with this, figure out what is this. I fell into ownership of this when somebody gave me a bunch of old junk, and I have no idea what the devil you can use it for.
Well,
USB AM 1394 something 6P.
That's a market for this baby. Otherwise, it will not take the time to design and create it, right?
USB AM hyphen 1394 6P. That's what it says on it.
Okay, Josh, what are you going to say? You muted yourself again. Okay.
I just was switching it back so I can join the conversation again because I'm just trying to get her situated. So she's on the desk. Play Pac-Man. She's playing with the lights. Yeah, I got 2 of those screens. I got so much tech. I'm just not using any of it because I'm just watching the kid all the time.
Well, the kid can use the tools that you bought for them.
You just learn how to talk to Siri and Google. You can tell it to turn on the robot, change the lights, all that kind of stuff. Frustration is I have to work out of here sometimes, so I switch it over to the cable, turn off everything, make sure the cable's working perfectly. No repeater signals or anything, and then I'm good for like a week. Because I'm up in this mountain community, the internet will start to go out because they won't send the signal strong enough to my house. Like 2 weeks, the signal starts to just fade. And it's called Zito Media. They're based out of Pennsylvania, so there's nothing I can do on that. But switch to Starlink, grab the thing, stick it in one spot where I know it's going to work for only a 6 second. It was 6 seconds.
And you can't put the Starlink
now on. I'm talking to you guys on this.
Well, you don't own the building.
I cannot. No.
Because you don't own the roof. You don't own the building. And there's no way to mount it without mounting it.
Oh, a portable Starlink. So I take it in the car. Like we just bought a Tesla. So I put it in the back of the Tesla and drive it to a spot. Like I live in a beautiful place. Like if I showed you guys, someday I'll do a Zoom call. I can see all the way to Ventura, California. 15 miles of pure national forest. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And there's actually a little campground in the middle of the forest that is off of a mountain that gets a perfect signal from Verizon. Or I can just take Starlink to anywhere I want over there with open skies where there's no trees. I can't complain.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of disappointed with Starlink there because I thought the Starlink is supposed to solve all the problems that you have.
And then you run it off of those
Not
gigantic battery packs that you own.
only will solve all the problems you have if you have if your backyard does not have any trees.
I mean, I thought the land you have is very big land, so there should be a spot there without trees, right?
The house that I'm renting here does not have the spot that I own. The land that I own is huge. I can put it anywhere there, but on the spot that I'm at here, there's no spot for it.
You don't have line of sight between the two locations.
A small disruption, the neighbor's trees on the left side. That's all.
Because you can put in a
You'd think it'd be
microwave
perfect,
beam.
but
If you have line of sight, you can put in a microwave beam, but that's a big, expensive operation.
in other words, I got really nothing to complain about except for the fact that I've got to switch when I'm talking to you guys. I got to switch over to cellular for a second and go upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Upstairs, it works perfectly. I got 2 bars. You guys aren't having any dropouts with me, right? That's why I keep my mic on, working perfectly.
And you can't use a nano cell that's located upstairs to your downstairs.
I put the nano cell up here, stuck it out the window. It wasn't getting the signal to repeat it.
Really? Do you know which
Yep.
way is the nearest tower?
So, yeah, I've got 2 apps telling me it's to this direction. So,
And you can't put a parabolic reflector behind it?
I'm sure I could. That would be great.
Take an old umbrella.
Anyway, I don't have any problems. Look, do you see any problems here? Like we're talking, there's no cutting out, there's no problems.
Well, you're not a continuous video, but your audio is continuous. Your video is slow frame rate. It's about 2 frames a second, 3 frames a second.
Okay, good to know.
Maybe a little faster. Maybe a little faster. If you move abruptly, it takes a while to draw the new picture.
Okay. Well, if I do here, anyway, I'll just switch over to watch this. I'll make it all work in a second. Hold on.
One problem about being in the kitchen is I can't silence all the phones around here. I got phones around here. Upstairs, I don't have the phone ringing on, but here downstairs they ring. But I can answer the phone. So, however,
how's that? How's my frame rate?
Well, that's much better. Yeah, now I can see your hand moving. You got a much better frame rate now.
So you're conscious about your internet provider services.
Yeah, I have to be. Oh, but anyway, I got to take care of this one. I'm
okay. Go for
waiting
it.
for like a really good conversation. There's so much interesting stuff going on in the world. Oh. Say hi to Sam and Barry.
Okay, hiya. She covers her face. Hiya, hiya.
Not into the thing anymore. She's like in her own thing. Do you want to DJ? You want to DJ for them? Okay. So in other words, are you guys like following all the stuff going on in the world, like in the science news and?
Well, some of it, can't follow all of it, but some of it, yes.
Controversy that got debunked.
Which controversy?
Conductor over room temperature.
Oh, I knew that was bogus the first time I saw the article. Like a month ago, I knew it was bogus.
I think anyone that follows that space knows it's bogus, but it was interesting the way that the news travels in the science world.
Well, even Sabina Hassenfelder gave it a sort of neutral coverage as if it might be true, even though I'm pretty sure she was very skeptical of it. She withheld her skepticism until there was evidence to overthrow it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to withhold the skepticism. You read the paper and it looks right, but then you look at the people that wrote the paper and it's interesting. And I think I think there's a real problem in the science world, according to, just what happened in Stanford. It's not that the guy had bad papers, it's that the people putting the papers together were really bad.
He didn't do his due diligence. He let his name go on a paper where he hadn't done due diligence.
Yeah.
That's pretty common.
I'm thinking all of these problems are just because there's too much information moving too fast. Like when you think of the most reasonable thing, why is everything breaking down? It's just too much information.
Move fast and break things is the philosophy of Zuckerberg and too many other people. In the Bell system, it was move slow and make sure everything is going to work before you turn it loose on the public.
Yeah.
And
so maybe move slow and fix things, Barry?
Move slow, make sure it doesn't break. And if it does break, make sure you know how to fix it fast.
All right.
And that was the Bell system philosophy. And that lost out to move fast and break things.
Yeah.
In other words, we could fix all the world's problems if we just slowed down and got our act together.
If we thought our way through, right. if we did our due diligence before introducing a practice to make sure that the practice was fundamentally sound to begin with, mathematically sound, and we introduced it with people who knew how to operate the system, and they operated it ethically and competently. You don't have any of those. You've thrown away all the protections that were essential to make sure that your system doesn't break.
All right, well, that's the solution to everything. So we'll just slow down. I'm going to go make some popsicles for this kid, and I'm going to listen.
And you can make a popsicle slowly and taste good.
Darwin's solution is let it fail and let it die.
All right.
And that's what's going to happen to our political system. It's going to continue to fail and it's going to die. Go make some pop.
So this is Chinese. Actually, we have a saying, something like, if you're the first one to, that you do something, you are the strongest one.
Yeah, but it's not sustainable.
Well, sustainable is a different story. It's a different outcome. So if you stick your hand out first, if you raise your hand first, you're the one that get to speak first. Then when the time's run out, you don't get to speak. The one that surely raise your hand. So that's the structure of the society.
But what I end up doing is not speaking in the meeting. And when the meeting is over, I will write something up.
Yeah.
But the people who are speaking in the meeting don't read.
Yeah, that's right.
So even though I published something about what the whole story was, they're completely oblivious.
Yeah. You have a more comprehensive listen to the speaker and then think about it and let your subconscious mind work on it and then figure it out. You are conscious about the whole thing. And the speaker is about, I have some ideas, it's like, I want to throw the seed into the ground to see how it sprouts. If it doesn't sprout, if it sprout, I own the land. If I don't sprout, then it's die. For you, it's like, I want to carefully make use of my one and only seed.
On the other hand, after the end of life of that one plant and it drops the seeds, will the second generation seeds germinate?
Yeah.
If they don't germinate, then what the hell?
Well, remember, the one that speak that doesn't read, how does you benefit them? That's the only problem too. So again, it depends on what perspective you're looking for.
What has to happen is an intermediary who does read and also knows how to speak will read, and then on the next iteration do the speaking and rarely show up. Or if they do show up and they do speak and they speak as articulately as they can, then the people still don't hear it. They don't hear it.
I try to be that, Barry, believe it or not. I try to be that, but it's hard.
The evidence is that we express a lot of communication that doesn't take root, doesn't land, or it lands, it evaporates, but it doesn't take root.
Yeah.
99% of communication is gone with the wind.
Right.
Remember the famous line from that movie? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. That's the only thing that people remember of that movie. Frankly, my dear, I don't get. And why do they remember it? Because the word damn had never been used in a movie before.
Wow. Oh.
I was just gonna say, wasn't that either the first or second movie? It was either Wizard of Oz or that movie to be in color. I think that's why it's remembered, not for that line.
That I don't know. I know the Wizard of Oz was famous for going from black and white to color. When she opens the door, it changes.
Right, but if you look up movie history, I think Gone with the Wind was the first major motion picture to be all in color, and Wizard of Oz was the first to turn into color.
Yeah,
and I think that was a big deal.
Yeah, the first talkie was a big deal. Al Jolson, the jazz singer, I think it was the first talkie, the first important talkie.
Yeah. I'm just saying that movie, I don't think what you just said is accurate, where they only remember, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I personally read the book. It's a great book. And I think it was a monumentous occasion when a book that good gets turned into a major motion picture and it gets released in Santa Barbara, California at a very special theater called the Granada, where I happen to grow up. And it's in color. Like, come on, there's a lot more to remember than just that one line.
But you're different. How many people in the situation read the books, live in the place, all that?
I'll have to look at it because I didn't know about
100,000 in the town I grew up in. That's how many people.
Do they pay attention to it though?
Probably, because there's a lot of old age homes in Santa Barbara, so I think a lot of people were alive when that movie was released there at that time. Okay. So maybe 20,000.
Okay, good. Now you're talking.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's so much that we take for granted.
So in the whole world of 7 billion people, 20,000, compare that to the number of people that's collected.
Oh, no, there's not 7 billion. There's 8 billion now, Sam. Have you looked at the, I posted it
some on people don't count because they don't participate. They don't have internet services.
Good. True that. Isn't that really like, hey, your internet's not working? Okay, we'll just pretend Josh isn't there. Like it's been like that for 5 years on these GCC calls when I'm up in the mountains. I'm just not, if my frame rates aren't good and this and that, I'm just discounted off this Zoom aspect. But which is why purpose go lowbrow and put on the cellular, just to see how other people in third world countries could participate in these calls. Because if I can't, how are they ever going to be able to?
That's right. By the way, your cellular is Verizon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the only way you can get that far.
Exactly. And T-Mobile uses all of them, but it's the same thing about dampening. I didn't personally sue, but there was a class action lawsuit from AT&T because I told them they were throttling me with my data, and no one believed me. But we filed a class action lawsuit, and they lost.
Wow.
So But then I switched to Verizon.
Yeah, Verizon is only antenna that can go that far. Otherwise, the other people don't have the CDMA technology.
Yep. But it's about to be a whole new world. There's going to be another layer. Starlink is just the first layer. So there's going to be a whole nother layer of transmitting services from space.
The trouble is there's more radiation too, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and the bandwidth frequency that they're using is a little bit troubling. So it's the beginning. They're just learning.
Yeah, the 5G right now. I mean, they install a lot of 5G antenna. They're not even turned on. Like I would say, even 10% of it or something, based on my area.
Yeah. I think it's really exciting. I just watched a video of Elon Musk driving to Zuckerberg's house, showing off full self-driving, because he's obviously just using the fight to promote his Tesla and X company. Have you guys seen this video?
Isn't the fight off now? I thought they backed away from that.
Fake. And so, I mean,
it's a show.
Yeah, it's fake. I know, but they backed off from the fake fight.
He went to his house, but then he literally was like, I don't even know at his house. It's all just fake. Huh?
By the way, did you see the article? Ronan Farrow, Maya Farrow's son, who writes for New Yorker, has written a big expose about Elon Musk that came out in the current New Yorker. And he was also interviewed on Fresh Air for an hour this week. About Elon.
Funny that you guys about Fresh Air, and legacy medias that are going out. Like, I don't know if you're following what's going on with the last debate this week.
Well, I heard
the last debate, yeah, sure.
It's the first debate.
The first
so
debate,
there was
yeah.
the first one. Well, there was 12 million, I think, tuned in. And then did you see how many people tuned into the Donald Trump thing with
Tucker Carlson?
Yeah.
It was on Twitter, so I don't know how many tuned into that.
Do you guys use Social Blade?
Never heard of it.
Social Blade, you can see how many people in real time on the debate stage are getting followers, unfollowing them.
Really?
Social media platforms, yeah.
I know how many people are following me. 0.
Well, we're not public. Like, Mike, hey, excuse me. Mike Pence was the vice president, and he's having troubles.
Well, he's trying to reach out to the evangelical Christians, but he wants them to be more pious than they are. And he wants to consider himself a very pious Christian, and the mainstream Christians are not that pious.
Well, I'm just saying we're in for a really interesting next year, because what worked with Donald Trump is going to work with these new candidates, and what's going on with social media. We've never seen anything like this. Like, it's very possible within 3 to 5 years, there's no such thing as NBC, ABC, CBS. All of that is gone. Like,
well, we'll see about
gone.
that. We'll see about that.
One lasting legacy of Donald Trump is giving his opponents bad nicknames. So, for example, Chris Christie calls Ramaswamy ChatGPT. That's a slur.
That was the gap. Yeah, I saw that.
And
hey.
And other people are calling him Ramasmarmy. That's exactly what Donald Trump would have called him, Ramasmarmy.
Not necessarily, because if you follow Donald Trump, he's actually very much in alignment with him. And Vivek is in alignment with Trump. They're both in alignment with each other. So I don't think he would call him that.
But if they got to be opponents running against each other, then he would pick up a nasty nickname for him.
Yeah,
but the fact that we're talking about that nasty nickname and not the fact that Donald Trump could become the next president, there's only 2 countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical advertising. That's New Zealand and America. And we know the type of president Donald Trump was. Shits and giggles, he would be very, very happy, because he hates the media, to change the law to say there's no more pharmaceutical advertising on mainstream media.
Just to punish the media.
Just to punish them, and that would mean 75% of ad revenue would go away overnight.
Is it that much? The pharmaceuticals are
75%.
I had no idea it was that much.
And it's all targeted to the baby boomer generation, if you look at all the cable advertising. So if that goes away, which right now it's kind of going away on its own, there's only 250,000 tuning into the top shows.
Yeah, I remember when it was Alka-Seltzer and aspirin were the big advertisers on TV in the 1950s. Well, yeah. You're too young to know that, but
I'm not too young to know that. I'm 50 years old.
So did you see the ads for Bufferin and aspirin and Alka-Seltzer?
I had to study that when I was studying marketing.
Oh, you studied it. Well, that's why you know about it.
Yeah, well, in the 1990s, those would be in the marketing magazines as far as case studies.
And those, I mean, the science of those was so ridiculous.
But aren't you guys concerned? Like, don't you think, like, okay, 2 years from now, let's just say Trump does win the next election, which is quite possible, because Joe Biden, you saw his speech this week on what he did at the fires in Maui?
I didn't hear the speech. I only know that he went there.
It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen ever.
Really? He gave a bad speech?
No, it wasn't a bad speech. It was, he should be shot he should be hung for that speech.
So he has a bad speechwriter then.
He had no speechwriter. He talked about how his Corvette once almost burnt up in a fire and his cat almost died, but it didn't die. And there's over 800 people missing and presumed dead. Like, he's in the most horrific tragedy that America's ever had. And he was talking about his cat possibly dying. and how he knows what they feel.
Try to find something he can relate to. That's a fire, right? That's a common factor.
And then he went to sleep. And then he sat down at the table and they talked about the problems and he fell asleep.
Yeah, he's tired because there's a time difference. It's bedtime.
He's dead. He's a walking zombie. The guy is not even capable of being the president of the United States of America.
Yeah, it's very tired. You know, when you get older to be 85 or something like that, you know how it is. It's your bedtime, my friend. So people should have sympathy about his falling asleep, not talk about.
I think he's literally, there's no possible way that he could win. There's no way. Even everyone in the Democratic Party knows that he's not winning the next election.
So that means it's going to be a Republican?
That doesn't mean it's a Republican. It just means there needs to be someone else running on the Democratic ticket.
Oh, so you think he won't get renominated?
You tell me, Barry. The guy can't even stay awake.
I can't predict politics. Politics is so, what's the word I'm looking for? Inscrutable. Politics is so inscrutable that I can't scrute it.
He told black people if they don't vote for them, they're not black. That's a famous quote that he has talking to Charlemagne the God on a show called The Breakfast Club.
Charlemagne the God? Who's that?
Well, I guess that's not very conscious, is it?
Not only is it not conscious, he made a declaration after he was president that he would stop the prisons for profit system. Never did. Like, in other words, the guy's, there's no way he's getting the black vote. I'll tell you that much.
Well, the black vote's not going to vote for Trump.
Be surprised.
Yes, politics. It's worse than surprising. Surprising is too mild a word. Astonished? I don't know what's the right word. Gobsmacked?
What makes you what makes you say the black vote would not vote for Trump?
Well, because he's anti-black.
No, he's not.
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're watching the mainstream media that lies to you constantly.
I'm not watching any media.
But where did you get that gap? He's anti-black.
Well, because when he was campaigning, he was talking about they're coming across the border, they're rapists, they're this, they're those people are not whites. They're coming across the southern border. They're not white.
They're not black.
Well, how do we know they're not black?
I'm sure some of them might come from countries that happen to be black skinned, but I'm saying that doesn't make him anti-black. I'm just saying if he says, I hate Mexicans, that doesn't make him anti-black. And he never said that, actually.
No, he only called them rapists and murderers and drug runners and whatnot.
Well, because they are. There's people coming up from the border that are rapists and murderers. There's a lot of people that are coming from countries all over the world, like France and Italy. They come through the southern border.
You know what?
And they're Italian.
Trump lost a civil case for statutory rape in New York City.
And who is he then? He's a rapist.
The rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the same thing. I'm not.
He didn't come across the border. He went in and made
the point. The point that I made, though, is the black vote will not go to our current president, Joe Biden.
All generalizations.
That's my point. It has nothing to do with whether.
All generalizations are lie, including this one. So many of my friends would think otherwise. So as I say.
Many of your friends are going to be watching some new media platform because the old legacy media will no longer exist. They'll be out of business.
Yeah, I agree.
And I hate that. I'm not an advocate for it. I'm just saying what I see. Yeah. If 75% is pharmaceuticals, the minute the next, a lot of people are dying in the Senate and in Congress. And the minute those people are gone and there's new votes, it's all of America wants advertising for pharmaceuticals off the mainstream TV. Like they don't like it after what happened in COVID. They're not happy with Pfizer, Moderna. They're not happy with Johnson & Johnson. They're not happy with what happened, that they lied to them and said, you will be given a vaccine that will prevent you from getting this disease. And it wasn't true.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So if that happens, and you can see with the strike going on, that's not helping these mainstream media companies either. This big, huge strike for the writers and the actors, the SAG, Screen Actors Guild.
But yeah, the advertisers don't have anything to sell because they don't have any entertainment to sell to draw the eyeballs.
If they have so much money, they can influence anybody with the lobbies, with the power, with political powers like NRA. No difference in that when they have plenty of money.
Watching people just like not see what's coming down the pipeline and just sitting there with their heads in the sand. And it just, I don't understand it. Or that's going on in Nigeria, this coup that happened, like it's pretty serious in Niger.
Yeah.
Except that the Wagner Group now is decapitated, and that was the group that was in Nigeria, the Wagner Group.
Yep.
So we'll have to see the outfall, because the Wagner Group has the old guard and the new guard, and the two guys, well, we don't know for sure, because there were two guys who were supposedly the top people in the Wagner Group that were on that airplane, although that's still not conclusively demonstrated that they died.
I mean, something happened from my perspective is there's a cause of that, and there's a structure to control that, and all the things fall together, and that's it works, So it doesn't happen out of thin air. There's a need, otherwise it will not, has not sustainable. When it's sustainable, then there's a, you want to call that a dark force behind it, there's a white force behind it, there's a brown force behind it, whatever that is, that's making it sustainable. Because there's a need for that.
I'm not sure that Western civilization is sustainable.
Well, if it's not sustainable, then there'll be a new sustainable, civilization will come about soon enough.
Yeah, and a lot of people have anticipated the next generation of civilization. Gandhi, I think, anticipated it, but it hasn't come about yet, and not going to come about in my lifetime, because I've got, if I'm lucky, maybe another decade to go, or a decade and a half.
Yeah.
So I don't see us fixing the bugs in Western civilization in my lifetime. Probably not in the next generation, and maybe not ever. It might just die off.
It's no different than learning stages that you're so expert in subjects. So it's the stages that the society, the whole community have to go through, so in order to go from one stage to the next stage.
Is in kindergarten. We are still in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson had an interesting little talk he gave. He says between us and the chimpanzees, 99% of our DNA is identical. Yet when we look at the chimpanzees, their level of intelligence is like that of a toddler, with only 1% difference in DNA. He says, imagine that there was an intelligent species, alien species, that was also 99% identical to DNA, and they look at us, they look at the smartest humans today, and they say, oh, they're like our toddlers. It could be that we look like toddlers to the next higher level generation that has practically identical DNA to us, and that's not so. And the next generation could very well be the AIs.
So the question is, so what?
So basically, we're idiots.
And then what? So what's wrong? Idiots talking to idiots?
Because if the next generation of more intelligent systems come along, then we become their pets.
Yeah, so with the pet, we get pampered. Now we treat our pet better than we treat our human being.
Joshua has his hand up, I think.
I think what you said is very poignant, but if you go backwards in the past, what if we are the pets of the last generation that was highly technologically evolved?
Right.
But they burned all the information. And if you go to Egypt and the Middle East, they scraped out all the remnants of the ancient Egyptian civilizations and started calling them mythological. They don't really exist, so no one looks it up. So the that's actually 8 billion now, people on this planet don't know that there was a civilization before, but there's a place called the Vatican, which happens to be a country inside of a country of Italy that happens to hold a lot of information and a lot of power. Interesting. What are they holding in there?
That's your hallucination, my friend.
I'll tell you one thing they were holding. Archimedes, who a lot of people think is the first engineer, technically invented calculus and wrote it down on one piece of paper, actually a few pieces of paper. And that writing that Archimedes wrote down, which is the basics of calculus, got stuck in a monastery someplace. And about 100 years ago, somebody found this book where the pages had been bleached and something else had been written over it. And he was able to, using modern technology, see what was originally written on it. And it looked like mathematics. He took it to a professor who says, this is calculus. And it turned out to be Archimedes.
Wow.
The monastery was holding the palimpsest, that's the word. The palimpsest of Archimedes was being held in a monastery for, what is it, 1,500 years, however long it was. Sam just turned his camera on for a second. What is
Come on,
it?
Sam, you can do it.
Is it because it's 5 minutes to 1? Is that why you turn on your camera? Yeah, you don't have your mic on. Sam, turn your microphone on.
Beep. 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 I'm backing up.
Yo, that was crazy.
Yeah, it's coming up on 2 hours. Is that why you turn on your camera?
Yeah, I've been not so much plugged into the talk that you guys were having.
Didn't miss anything.
I would like to have a debate with what Sam Chan when you said that I'm completely delusional about what I'm talking about. I will debate you on that.
Wait, that sounds pretty good. What was that? What was that? Maybe I should have listened to that one.
It's the idea that ancient knowledge is being kept secret inside of the Vatican.
That's a hallucination, I was told.
It's a hallucination. Yeah. I'm happy to go over that subject in detail if you're ever
Tomorrow,
interested.
we'll talk about it.
Well, they do have a lot of books that nobody else, because they were book copiers, they were scribes, and they kept a lot of literature that never got translated and published to the general public, but they don't read it either. They just
I think it'll be this way, right? So if it said that there's a town that have a public library in the size of a Library of Congress, and there's another town that has thousands of miles away, they have a town that have no library, and both of them, compare the knowledge and compare the wisdom they have. Which one would you rather trust? The town without the library, or the one with the Library of Congress library? So we are in this humongous large data model, language model, and all that good stuff that we can compress all the consciousness together and then crystallize it, and with great memories and all that stuff. Come on, compared to the old ancient use God, I don't know how it works. So enlighten me,
Well, the ancient writings that did survive are hard to read because they were written in old languages for people who lived 2,000-3,000 years ago. But if you can figure out what they were talking about and map them into modern mathematics, which is tricky, if you trap them in modern mathematics, they had a lot of insight. But they had to tell it in a narrative. A narrative is basically suicide for mathematics. If you try to take good mathematics and turn it into a narrative, you've thrown away the math. You can get it back. It's tricky.
So let me say this to you. I started reading the Book of Change, the I Ching, when I was 12 years old. That was the most boring book I ever bought. And I always read it when I get mad with someone. I was really, really mad. That's what the book I reach out for, because when I read that book, I fall asleep. It divides my energy. So the Book of Change. So I've been I'm studying Book of Change for about 50 years. Okay. That's the most ancient. Some people say that the Book of Change started about 8,000 years ago, but I say it's 5,000 years old book. Have all this encrypted things. So I'm very wisdom, knowledge, you name it, I Ching, Tao Te Ching, and all that stuff. Believe me, I went through all that stuff. A lot of those things are basically like Book of Change. It's just like this is how I explain Book of Change. Okay, so how you have this pendulum thing with crystals, like okay, yes, no, question, all that stuff. And then maybe you have this circular motion, all that stuff. The Book of Change have 64 versions. So you got 64 square, get that different version of it. But it's all tied to your hallucination. So you basically give people a choice. you explain something that's out of perspective that you never thought of it before. So it's not like, oh yeah, there's wisdom there. If you think there's wisdom, of course there's wisdom. If you don't think there's a wisdom, there won't be wisdom. So that's why we believe to the people that we believe in, because we trust them based on the prior knowledge. But if we don't have any reason to trust them, whatever the truth they communicate to us, we won't be able to accept it because we don't accept the truth. So it's very complicated. I said it would deserve another 2 hours of conversation. I can give you multiple examples. This is the last 50 years of reading the ancient books, I say. You know, you name it, anytime there's a wisdom there, I want it because I was hungry for it.
I predict that we will get wisdom from AI, evolving AW, before we figure out how to read all that old literature.
Yeah. I agree.
In fact, that the AI will read the old literature and gradually interpret it.
Yeah. It's a tool. Again, I just have to remind everybody it's a tool. It's for the stage that we're in is useful. And then after that, God knows.
It's good to do a deep dive, though, on the whole entire manuscript of the I Ching. Like, in other words, there's a lot of passages in there, and they're written very precisely for a purpose.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's the way the interoperability, meaning the menu system of it, is a random 64 throwing 2 coins. The fact that randomness takes a part in it, I think, is very important.
Oh, those are
the guy, the mathematical genius from MIT who was studying the weather that started to come across chaos math.
Yeah.
Yeah. Edward Lorenz.
So this is the stick that I use when I want the simple version of the I Ching's reading. It's very accurate. I found this very accurate, so I bought a second set of the sticks. I have one in the office, I have one here. So whenever I have I can go this way, I can go that way. And talk about it tomorrow is about how do you ask I Ching for the question, and then the answer will come back to you and all that. So again, I love this kind of stuff because it's beyond my normal, what I call encyclopedia reading.
They called it in the Old Testament, it's known as casting lots. Casting lots is really throwing dice, except they weren't dice, they were other things. Yeah. They were casting lots, and that would basically randomly choose. It's like D&D. You roll the dice and tells you what your character does.
Yeah.
And you find out what happens.
All right, we have 2 minutes past, so we'll save this wonderful conversation for tomorrow. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Much love. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Sam.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sam.